This is Men's Sacred Liberation Podcast, a place for the men of Charlotte to share their honest experiences about life. Hi, everybody. I am Brian Straheen, and I am sitting here with Robert Brewer. Robert, thank you for joining us on Men's Sacred Liberation.
My pleasure, Brian. Glad to be here.
This is an honor to be with you here today because we know each other very well and partner in this program of Men's Sacred Liberation. And I want to get right into it.
Okay.
What is Men's Sacred Liberation? Tell us a bit about what it is.
You know, for me, Brian, and why we've, done or doing this, we're liberating men from predefined, self-limiting beliefs about what masculinity is. If we listen to the culture and the news and the media and all that, we'll get very warped definitions of what masculinity is. So I think our mission, or the mission of Sacred Men's Liberation, is to define that in a sacred way, in a spiritual way, in a heart-centered way, and liberate men from the predefined, definitions that we struggle with every day. So for me, it's doing those things to help men define masculinity in themselves, because we can't take what the world tells us. We have to define that within ourselves. We have to define ourselves in ourselves. And part of who we are as men is that we're masculine. And I, for one, want to be a sacred masculine. We hear the word toxic masculine so much, and that's unfortunate. I want to be a sacred masculine, and that's what Men's Sacred Liberation is.
So tell the viewers a bit more about how we are going about doing this work.
So we do retreats. I have a small retreat center here in Charlotte called Campo de Medicina. We've had 6 retreats out there, men's retreats. Various events on the program. We do movement. We have cacao ceremonies. Cacao is a master plant, heart-opening plant. We have movement, primal voice, vocalization. We have breath work, play, have fun. We also learn about, sacred fire. We do tobacco prayers with sacred tobacco from South America. We even serve rapé, which is a sacred tobacco snuff. And just teach men about, ceremony, about getting in touch with themselves, about being able to express themselves. We say primal, but, we're all primal. And sometimes we have to get in touch with our primal nature. We're men. We're beasts, savages under control. And, a lot of times the world doesn't want us to be that. They want us to be docile, peaceful. Well, I'm all about peace. As a veteran, I signed up to go to war. War's hell. Pray for peace, hope for peace. But if war comes, be prepared. One of my favorite sayings in the world, Bruce Lee. I'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. So, that to me is part of who I am, but always under control. Toxic masculinity gets its definition because men aren't under control. They're angry and abusive and verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive. They're, they get crazy. Well, that's not a man. That's not masculine.
So talk about how these practices that we invite men to participate in help support their connection with their inner masculine. Why these specific activities that we host at these retreats? And
I
how
think,
does this help? Does it
yeah, I
help?
think, one of the biggest helps that I see in the men is it allows them, we give them the space, we hold the container, safety. It's a safe place to be who you are. You don't have to pretend to be anything else. You don't have to, wear a mask. You can just let the mask fall to the ground and just be who you are, and then follow through, the exercises and the events and the movements, and, begin getting in touch with, your inner self, not your mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who are we in our heart? And I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is focusing on who we are inside of our heart, because that's where the truth is. The truth is not up here. That's where the ego lives, and the ego
Mm.
it doesn't tell the truth all the time, very
Mm.
rarely. But the heart is always truth-centered. So I think, for me, the what we do in the retreats is always pursuing the heart of the man, because that's where the man will define himself. That's where he'll learn who he is. That's where he'll learn what his purpose really is, why he's here. That's where he, you hear about what's the desire of your heart. It's not the desire of your mind, it's the desires of your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can get in touch with that, then you become, in my opinion, sacred.
Mm. And can you talk a little bit more about the struggles you've faced as a man and how you were led to some of these practices? You mentioned sacred plant medicines.
Mm-hmm.
How have those been used in your healing process? And more specifically, any of these other practices you've come to that have been helpful? And what struggles led you to those practices?
Yeah. So I struggled with many things through my adult life and teenage years. Alcohol, drugs. Spent many a year inside the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous trying to get sober. Suffered with PTSD from the military and other things, trauma from my childhood. I had it all. I mean, I'm not unique, and I'm not saying all of us have that. I'm not pointing out how bad I am. We all have troubles and struggles.
Mm-hmm.
My particular journey started with with those things. Alcohol was my drug of choice. I was a highly functional alcoholic. I held a very high professional position,
Mm-hmm.
but it got me. It finally took me to my knees, and then I became very, very depressed, suicidal, um, and I just cried out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go yet. I think I
Mm.
still have some stuff to do, but
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, the pain of leaving's a little less than the pain of staying.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I didn't do it. Divine intervention, we'll call it that.
Mm-hmm.
A month later, I did my first plant medicine ceremony, and that began really the transformation of Robert into the version he is today. Which if you looked at me 5 years ago and looked at me today,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't recognize the two individuals. Still working. I mean, I got a lot of work to do. Still upgrading
Mm-hmm.
the OS,
Mm.
the operating system. So, and that's okay. I think I told you earlier, I'm on version 79.3,
Mm.
not Robert 2.0. I'm way
Right.
past that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how my journey started, through just through that spiritual awakening process.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to understand, what life is, and being grateful for the first time for being alive
Mm-hmm.
in this life. We're in life,
Right.
and seeing things for the first time, seeing the life and nature around me, and appreciating things more, and just being grateful I'm grateful I got 3 daughters and 2 grandchildren, and just wow, I get to live and enjoy time with them. So, and in that journey, though, I discovered a lot of things about myself. I asked a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that at my very core of my trauma and all the things that caused me to be the older version of myself really were rooted in 3 things
Mm-hmm.
for me: guilt, shame, and unworthiness. So I really began an intensive work on healing those things.
Mm.
Still working on it. I mean, it's a never-ending process for me.
Right.
Um, and that allowed me to understand, what what the suffering's about,
Mm-hmm.
um, and how it affected me and impacted me. The guilt of so much guilt, and then the shame of just being shame, just being walking in shame. And then the unworthiness. I've learned that many of us suffer with that low self-esteem, unworthiness, and we are worthy.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for a reason. And then when I started that process, I began asking, what I think were the right questions. And a funny story, I was in a ceremony asking the questions that I wanted to get answered, and I was told, I'm not going to give you an answer
Mm.
because, Robert, you don't even know what the right question is.
Mm-hmm.
When you can come back with what the right question is, then we'll talk about an answer. And it took a while, and finally I came to what the right questions are for me. Who am I? Really, who am I?
Mm.
Not who I think I am, not the identity that, culture has placed on me or my parents imposed on me, or, get an education, get a job, make a lot of money, buy a house, get married, have kids. That's all good. I'm not saying that's bad, but that was my identity.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I really? And when I finally saw the answer to that, I then saw that I have a purpose now. Probably have already had I just denied the purpose. Now I know what my purpose is. And then that showed me and began to open up what the true desires of my heart are.
Mm.
And it has nothing to do with me. My purpose is not anything to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
My purpose is to serve and to give back what I've been so graciously given. Give it back. I can't keep this.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, for me, it's so powerful. I got to give it back.
Mm-hmm.
Got to give it to other men, people, my children. Serve.
Mm.
True masculinity. Servant.
Mm-hmm.
King servant.
Mm.
Lion servant.
Mm.
Why the lion, right?
Yeah. Why the lion?
King of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
King of the jungle. Quiet. You won't hear him. He doesn't need to roar. He doesn't need to stand up on the hill and go, I'm the king of the jungle.
Mm.
Everybody knows he's the king of the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And why are the lionesses so powerful? Because they know who's got their back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that principle right there talks. I mean, that's the masculine, feminine principle.
Mm.
I don't ever want to hinder the feminine from being everything they possibly can be. My servant is to have their back.
Why do you think it's a hot topic these days, this discussion about masculine and feminine? What is it? Why are we talking about it? And how do you define the two? You started to talk about that earlier, masculinity. I've noticed that there are times when masculine is attached with gender, man,
Right.
and the opposite for female and femininity, and is it possible that we embody both of these energies?
I believe so. I don't think it's correct or balanced to attach gender to masculine or gender to feminine.
Mm-hmm.
In the natural world, that's the way it is. But it's not wrong to be a feminine male or a masculine female.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know them. I know people like that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's a balance. I think that we were born. I mean, if you go back, and we're not going to get into religious studies, but if you look at the Bible, we are created in their image, both man and woman. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to create you as a man and create you as a feminine." I believe that we were given the qualities of both because we have to. That's the balance. We have to have a balance.
Right.
It's not equality, but it is a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, I've had this conversation. For me to deny my feminine qualities, I don't think I want to do that.
Mm.
For me to be controlled by my feminine qualities, not in my nature, that's not in me. But I need to have those qualities, compassion and tenderness, and I can't always be a savage.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a balancing. It's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
If we deny one, we exaggerate the other to a point where it may become overbearing and potentially toxic,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. I mean, there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity. There's very little talk about toxic femininity.
Mm.
That exists.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't like the word toxic attached to either one of those.
Right.
I don't think toxic masculine, they're mutually exclusive. You can't be truly sacred masculine and be toxic. Can't happen. And the same with the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be sacred feminine and be toxic.
And people are trying to put those two together.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. Our brain, right? Our computer, most powerful computer in the world. It's a meaning-making machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a defining, categorizing, describing machine. That's all it wants to do is put things in a box, define it, categorize it. Okay, now I know. So people are trying to define masculinity. And unfortunately, there are a lot of toxic males. And, the country's full of it. The world's full of it. I mean, the atrocities of history are perpetrated mostly by men, unfortunately. You can't deny that. I don't deny that. What I do say is that those men that perpetrated those atrocities and those horrors upon humanity, that's not a masculine. Because a masculine is a protector,
Mm-hmm.
a servant, a guardian. He's a lion.
When you think about the retreats we've held, the Men's Sacred Liberation retreats, what have you observed, both as an active participant and a co-facilitator within yourself, and also with the other participants, and how they have benefited from these experiences? What do they seem to get out of these day retreats where they're experiencing these embodiment practices, but also a lot of processing? There's a lot of talking around the fire about what's going on and what's coming up for them. How have you benefited, and how have you seen other men benefit?
Well, I think one of the things that I've seen many times, probably in every retreat, is that it's a moving from the thinking and the processing and the analyzing, and dropping down into the heart space. And then they go. You almost see the lights go on. They go, oh. So you get them in touch with their heart space, so they can understand their purpose and who they are and the desire that they really want, how to serve and how to be masculine. and then that just continues to open it up. That's why we started. We haven't started all the retreats with cacao, but the last two or three, and because cacao as a master plant is a heart opening medicine, and it opens their heart. So that's what I see. I see the heart opening. I see the embodiment, the primal movement, and the primal energy that doesn't come from here. That comes from here, the heart and the sacral and the root. That's what I've seen. And then as we progress through the day, there's more and more opening. Then we get to the breath work and the meditation, and then the rapé, and it's just. Then with those practices, I've seen them go. I mean, every time so deep, into deep meditation, into deep theta, and unbelievable experiences by many. Personally too.
Right.
I've had unbelievable experiences to the point where I couldn't come out fast enough to get to the next thing that I had to do. Remember?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
And so how has this led you to other work you're doing and changed your trajectory, let's say professionally? How have the retreats and this, let's call it men's work, led you down the path that you're currently on? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so for me, my journey has led me to a couple of new things in my life. One of them, through my journeys and ceremonies, I've now involved with a veterans group out of Asheville, working with veterans, both active duty and retired or non-active, with PTSD. So that's a passion of mine, coming from that, being able to give back to those veterans through different, things, and working with, the VA, and trying to get more involved with the VA. I mean, and nothing against the VA. They're simply overwhelmed. There's so many. They do the best they can, but there's more that can be done by all of us. So I feel called to do that. So, and from there, I launched my hypnotherapy practice. I was certified and trained by Liz Burkholder here in Charlotte as a level 1, level 2 hypnotherapist. Focused in on, again, veterans with PTSD, men, and women. I don't limit, but that's my passion, to help and coach. I'm a coach and a guide, and we just launched. I just launched 3 weeks ago. So that's new for me. It's kind of out of the box. And I've got a couple of other things that I'm getting ready to launch that, 6 months ago I would have never. And, there was, I know I talked to at the men's retreat. A switch got flipped earlier this year. It's the only way I can describe it. A switch got flipped. More energy, more vision, clearer, more clarity on purpose, more clarity on who I am and what I need to do, what I'm being called to do, if I can use that term, what I'm being asked to do. A switch got flipped through a series of about 4 things that happened to me, really in March. So the switch got flipped, and here we are.
Here we are.
And
I want to know, because one of the key principles and the values of men's sacred liberation is connection. And you've spoken about that throughout our time together today. How has connection with a community of men supported your journey? Because it sounds like relationships are a key component of this. How have relationships and your definition of those evolved, and how have your connections and relationships, specifically with men,
Mm-hmm.
uh, perhaps ones that you've met and bonded with in the retreats,
Mm-hmm.
helped your journey?
It's powerful. I mean, it's an unbelievable help. Um, I was an isolationist. You know, I grew up as a lone wolf,
Mm.
Rambo. You know, toxic Rambo, if you want to really define it. I didn't need anybody. I didn't want anybody. Lone wolf,
Mm.
living on an island.
How did that work out for you?
Not very well. Not very well. I ended up at the rock bottom,
Mm.
splat on the concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it didn't end very well. And then through the 5 years, previous 5 years, I've learned that I need people, specifically men. I need brothers. You know, I need a band of brothers. And in my worst, I still have struggles. I mean, we're not immune because we're on this spiritual journey from a daily struggle. But instead of isolating, withdrawing, retreating into my cave, I was a cave dweller.
Mm.
I reach out. I reach out to reach out to you. I reach out to my brother in Asheville that I'm doing the work with. Another brother in Georgia that's involved in that work. I reach out to men that are that are in the retreat. We've got a couple of groups going where I'll just reach out and say, this is how I feel today,
Mm.
and be brutally honest about it,
Right.
rigorously honest about it. There's a slight difference between being brutally honest and being rigorously honest. Brutally is I don't want to be brutally honest about something, but I want to be rigorously honest. I want to consistently be honest. So being rigorously honest with groups and saying, I'm struggling today, dudes. And inevitably someone will reach out. And because then when you build that community, when you build that brotherhood, that band of brothers, the tribe, the clan, whatever you want to call that, they reach out to you. So you've got this growing, men's organism of connectedness, where we're not, hey, what did you see where the Panthers they got a good quarterback this year? Great. I'm a football fan. I love that, but that's not what we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling with procrastination today. I needed to get something done, and I didn't get it done, and I'm feeling guilty about it. So my choice is I can sit there and wallow in my guilt and my procrastination and spin down the rabbit hole again, or I can reach out to somebody and say, and if it's a brother, a friend and a brother, he's going to say, it's okay, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow's another day. You're doing all right. Instead of going, yeah, you're just a procrastinating jerk, aren't you?
Mm.
It's not a brother.
Mm.
Or I can call somebody and say, man, I just launched this. I got this great idea. I think we ought to do this. And, what's the brother going to say? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
Right.
That's what that creates. And I've seen it in others. I mean, it's not just them to me. It's them to themselves, to each other. We've got, smaller groups, connected to each other and becoming brothers and friends. And that's what it's all about.
Right.
We need people.
Right.
We all need people.
Mm-hmm. And that's been the beautiful thing for me to observe and experience is with each retreat,
Mm-hmm.
connections have been created and fostered way beyond the retreats. And as we see, because there's these smaller groups that connect up, and then they're coming back to more retreats. So some men have come to all of them. They keep coming back, and then they're meeting more people and building deeper connections. And it's a cross-pollination, if you will. There's different relationships being built across the
Mm-hmm.
different groups that come to the different retreats, which
Mm-hmm.
has been really beautiful to see.
And I've been told, some people have said, "Yeah, I heard about your retreat." I went, "Oh, where'd you hear that from?"
Mm-hmm.
People are talking about it
Right.
because it's impacting them, and when something impacts you, you want to share that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do.
Right.
So I hear it. I hear it from others in the community.
Right.
We've got a lot of people in the community, and I'll be somewhere on another event in another venue, and I'll hear someone, "Oh God, you guys heard about your retreat last Saturday from so and so."
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, it's powerful."
So we have another retreat coming up on July 8th.
July 8th.
July 8th. And I'm already excited about what's to come there. Tell the audience, what is something that you look forward to in these retreats, specifically you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you look forward to as a co-facilitator, and how have you grown in that role?
For me, I enjoy the time up to the day of the retreat. As I sit in meditation and prayer and do breath work, leading up to what needs to be said. Is there a teaching that I have learned from my teachers that I can pass on? Again, not in my, I need to talk about this. What do I need? What have I been given that I can give back? So I love that part, and but I also like I love fire keeping. I'm a pyromaniac, right? So I love fire. I think fire is powerful. Um, First element that was given to humans.
Mm-hmm.
And the fire is, so powerful. I like teaching about the fire as I learn more about fire keeping. I love, teaching about tobacco as a master plant, both just the tobacco and as rapé, serving the rapé. Rapé is one of my medicines regularly, and being able to share that in ceremony and teach about how you respect the plant medicines. And that's, it's all about ceremony.
Right.
Don't ever take it for granted or haphazardly.
Mm-hmm.
Always in ceremony. I love teaching that. I enjoy the primal movement stuff because I get to do some martial arts stuff. So. Usually,
which I'm really excited about because there's a festival coming up this weekend.
Yes.
One Fest at Lenny Boy, which we will be at with a booth talking about all the work that we're doing and the work you've shared and my work as a clinical therapist in private practice here. And we will be hosting a tea chat about men's sacred liberation. So all of you listeners can come and check us out. Tickets are still available. One Fest this Saturday, May 20th. And we'll have a primal movement class there.
right.
So there's a lot of buzz around it. What is it? Primal movement. How can we experience this? So men, women of all ages can come and check it out. Everyone's welcome to take that class, which is super exciting. And what I appreciate about what you're saying is that whether it's you, me, or anyone involved, one of the other key components of this work is raising men up. I have goosebumps thinking about it and talking about it. Raising men up in our community. The work is in Charlotte. We're focusing on men in Charlotte and raising them up so that we can honor the passions they have, the skills that they have, and we're not the only ones who offer something at the retreat. Every retreat we identify more than one man, and sometimes women. You know, we've had Victoria Martinez host cacao ceremonies in our retreats. Having men share their gifts with us.
Right.
And so you're sharing your passion and love for fire and fire keeping and ceremony and hosting plant medicine, rapé, sacred tobacco ceremonies. Other men have come in too. So I think that's
Yeah.
a very powerful experience, is having other men share their talents and gifts with us, whether it's a lecture or some sort of a talk or actually teaching a class or an offering. That's really exciting for me.
Me too.
Even in what we're going to be doing, I'll just share a little bit about the Primal Movement. One of the men who is deeply involved in our work, Asher Strunk, will be DJing the Primal Movement experience. So I'm really excited about that.
You ought to
And
see. You got to hear that.
he'll be DJing our next retreat. We have a really exciting opportunity that we'll be offering for the men on July 8th. This experience with Asher. So that's what I get jazzed about, is meeting men, seeing their passions come out, or having revelations for the first time of, wow, like this is my passion. I love this. I want to explore more of that. And then embodying it, becoming it, living it out. That's really exciting for me.
It is very exciting. And I think at One Fest too, I think the table, we don't need to give tips yet, but there'll be other things on the table announcing other things that we're doing upcoming. So
Right. A lot of exciting
information. We'll be there. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And it's Lenny Boys.
You can't beat that.
You can't beat that. Great kombucha.
Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate your time today. And that's a wrap. We will see you again with our next interview with another man from Charlotte.